All right, so we're diving into some pretty wild log files today. I bet you've got one that's just like a jumbled mess.
Ah, yes. Log files can definitely be a challenge, especially when they decide to use every type of separator under the sun.
It's like they just couldn't pick a favorite, commas, spaces, quotes.
Yeah.
Why not all of them at once, right?
Exactly. And that inconsistency is where the real headache comes in. It's like trying to understand someone who switches languages every other sentence.
Okay, so paint a picture for me. What kind of separator chaos are we dealing with here?
Well, we've got four main culprits in this particular log file.
Oh boy, four. Okay, lay it on me.
First, we have your plain old commas, which are, fairly standard.
Makes sense.
But then things get interesting. We also have a space followed by a comma.
Okay, so like a little extra breathing room for the comma.
Right. And then it gets even wilder, a space followed by a quoted value.
Wait, so the quotes are like a part of the separator.
Exactly. It's like the
Mm.
log file is trying to emphasize certain values.
Okay, I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed already, and we're only on culprit number three.
And then, to top it all off, we have values hiding after an equal sign.
Values after an equal sign. Okay, that's a whole new level of sneaky.
It's like they're trying to blend into the background.
So basically, we've got a log file that's speaking four different dialects of the same language.
Exactly. And that makes it incredibly difficult to actually extract any meaningful information.
I'm already getting a headache just thinking about it. Trying to parse this manually would be a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. It'd be incredibly time-consuming and error-prone.
So what's the solution? Is there some sort of magic wand we can wave to make this log file behave?
Well, it's not magic, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
We can use a tool called awk to tame this wild beast.
Awk. Okay, I've heard of that. It's a command line tool, right?
You got it. And it's incredibly powerful for text processing and data manipulation.
Command line and me. Well, we don't always see eye to eye. Is awk something a beginner can wrap their head around?
Absolutely. It might seem intimidating at first, but it's actually quite intuitive once you get the basics down.
Okay, that's good to hear. So how does awk come to the rescue with this particular log file mess?
Well, we can write an awk script that systematically handles each of those separator variations.
Oh, so it's like having a custom-built tool that knows exactly how to deal with this specific chaos.
Precisely. And what's really cool is that the script is surprisingly elegant and efficient.
Elegant, huh? Okay, now I'm intrigued. So walk me through it. I've got this messy log file staring me in the face. How does awk actually work its magic?
Let's imagine you have a line in your log file that looks something like this. Field 1 value 1, field 2 value 2, field 3 with spaces, field 4 another value, field 5 quoted value, field 6 mid some value.
Yeah, that's pretty much the kind of nightmare I'm dealing with.
Right, so our goal is to extract those field names and values so we can actually use the data. And the first thing our awk script does is it standardizes those commas.
Standardizes the commas. Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It basically says, hey, let's treat all commas equally and replaces any R combo with just a single comma.
So it's like ironing out those little inconsistencies, making sure all the commas are on the same page.
Exactly. That way we have a consistent separator to work with.
Okay, so now all the commas are playing nicely together. But what about those equal signs? I mean, wouldn't it be easier to just ignore them?
We could, but then we'd lose valuable information. Those equal signs are actually helpful because they indicate a clear relationship between a field name and its value.
Oh, I see. So we want to keep those relationships intact.
Exactly. And don't worry, our awk script is smart enough to handle them.
All right, I trust you. So what happens after the script standardizes the commas?
Well, now that we have those commas acting as nice, clear separators, awk can split the entire line into separate fields using those commas as guideposts.
So it's like taking that jumbled mess and turning it into neat little compartments, each holding a piece of data.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so we're making progress. But what about those pesky quotes and those values lurking after the equal signs?
Ah, good point. The script handles those next. It strips away any leading or trailing spaces and quotes from the fields.
So it's like a cleanup crew coming in after the initial demolition, making sure everything is tidy and ready for analysis.
Exactly. So for example, field 3 with spaces becomes just field 3 with spaces.
No more extra baggage.
Now for those trickier values after the equal signs, the script uses a technique called pattern matching.
Pattern matching. Okay, that sounds a little intimidating.
It might sound complex, but it's actually quite intuitive. It's like having a tiny detective inside the script that can scan the text and grab exactly what we need based on a specific pattern.
Okay, I'm listening. How does this detective work?
Well, in this case, the pattern our script is looking for is an equal sign followed by any characters that aren't spaces.
So it's basically saying, find the equal sign, and then grab everything after it until you hit a space.
You got it. And then it captures those characters, which represent the value we want, and sets them aside. We call these captured bits capture groups.
Capture groups. Okay, I'm trying to keep up.
They're like labeled containers that hold on to those extracted values so we can use them later.
So it's like a super organized evidence locker where each piece of evidence is carefully labeled and stored.
You got it. And what's really cool is that the script can handle all sorts of variations in how those values are formatted, whether they have spaces or not, whether they're in quotes or not.
So it's like a super flexible detective who can adapt to any situation.
Exactly. The script can still extract the information correctly.
Okay, this is starting to sound pretty impressive. So what happens after the script has done all this extracting and cleaning up? What does the final output actually look like?
That's the best part. Instead of that messy, jumbled line we started with, you get a beautifully organized list. It would look something like this. Field 1, value 1. Field 2, value 2. Field 3, field 3 with spaces. Field 4, another value. Field 5, field 5. Field 6, quoted value. And finally, field 7, some value.
Wow. So it's like going from a chaotic jungle of raw data to a well-organized library where you can actually find what you need.
Exactly. Perfectly parsed and ready for you to analyze.
So instead of me squinting at my screen trying to decipher this log file, I can just let Awk do all the heavy lifting.
You got it. You save time, you avoid frustration, and you get to focus on what the data means rather than getting bogged down in the messy details of how it's formatted.
Okay, I'm definitely sold on the power of Awk, but that's just the beginning, right? There's so much more we can do with it.
Oh, absolutely. This is just a taste of what Awk can do. We've only scratched the surface.
All right. I'm feeling the excitement building here. So where do we go from here? What can we actually do with this newly tamed data?
You know, it's funny. I used to think log files were just these boring technical things that only developers cared about.
I know, right? They definitely don't have the most glamorous reputation.
But now I'm starting to see them in a whole new light.
That's the power of tools like Awk. They don't just solve technical problems, they open up a whole new way of seeing things. It's like we've been given this secret decoder ring, and now we can unlock insights from all sorts of data sources that might have seemed completely unusable before.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating is how Awk actually achieves this level of precision with those patterns we talked about earlier.
Okay, let's dive a little deeper into those patterns. I'm ready to unlock the secrets of this code-breaking wizardry.
Remember how Awk splits that log line into those neat little fields based on the commas?
Yeah, like those little compartments each holding a piece of data.
Well, the script uses a loop to go through each of those fields one by one.
So it's not just looking at the entire line all at once.
Nope. It's breaking it down and analyzing each piece individually. It's like a detective meticulously examining every clue at a crime scene.
Okay, I like that analogy. So within that loop, it's applying those pattern matching techniques we talked about earlier.
Exactly. For instance, to get rid of those extra quotes and spaces, it uses a special command called gsub.
Gsub. Okay, that sounds a little technical. What does that actually do?
Think of gsub as like a find and replace tool, but on steroids.
Okay, so it's super powered find and replace.
Right. It lets you search for a specific pattern within a string of text and then replace it with something else.
So in our case, we're using gsub to find any leading or trailing spaces or quotes.
And replacing them with, well, nothing.
So it's basically saying, see those quotes and spaces, make them disappear.
Pretty much. And the result is that we end up with clean, uncluttered values. So field 3 with spaces stays as field 3 with spaces, without any extra quotes or spaces around it.
Ah, I see. So that's how Awk handles those extra bits of formatting that were cluttering up our data.
Exactly. But the real magic happens when the script encounters those values hiding after the equal signs. That's where those patterns, or what we formally call regular expressions, really shine.
Okay, regular expressions, I've heard of those, but they always seemed kind of intimidating.
I get it. They have a bit of a reputation. But they're incredibly powerful once you understand how they work.
So break it down for me. What are they exactly?
They're essentially a specialized language for describing patterns in text.
So instead of just searching for a specific word or phrase, we can define a pattern that will match a whole range of variations.
Exactly. That's why they're so perfect for dealing with data that isn't perfectly consistent, like our log file here.
Right, because we've got commas, spaces, quotes, equal signs. It's a bit of a free-for-all.
Exactly. But our regular expression can handle it. In this case, we're using one to tell Awk. Look for an equal sign, and then capture everything that comes after it, as long as it's not a space.
I see. So it's like a super specific search filter that only grabs the data we need and ignores all the surrounding clutter.
You got it. And those capture groups we talked about earlier come into play here as well.
Oh, right, those labels containers.
Exactly. Each part of the regular expression that we want to extract, which in this case is the value after the equal sign, is enclosed in parentheses.
Okay, so the parentheses are like little flags that say, hey, grab this.
And those parentheses tell awk to store those captured pieces in separate containers so we can access them later.
So it's not just finding the data, it's also organizing it neatly so we can easily retrieve it later.
Exactly. Like a data detective meticulously gathering evidence and organizing it into neat little files.
I love that analogy.
And the beauty of this approach is that it can handle a wide range of variations in how those values are formatted.
So even if the log file is inconsistent, the script can still get the job done.
That's the power of awk. It gives us the flexibility to adapt to whatever messy data we throw at it. And once it's done its magic, it presents the results in a clear, structured way, making it easy for you to understand and analyze.
It's really incredible how much work this script is doing behind the scenes. And the end result is that we go from this jumbled mess to a neatly organized data set ready for analysis.
And that's the key. By using awk to structure this data, we're opening up a whole new world of possibilities.
Okay, I'm definitely feeling the excitement building here. So where do we go from here? What can we actually do with this newly tamed data? It's like we've gone from digging through a messy toolbox to having this perfectly organized workshop,
Right, everything's labeled in its place. You can actually find what you need and use it.
Exactly. So now that we've got this beautiful structured data, what can we actually do with it?
Well, now you can start asking the interesting questions. It's like, you finally got the ingredients prepped, and now you can actually start cooking.
I like that. So what kind of delicious insights can we cook up from this data?
Oh, the possibilities are endless. Think about it. Let's say you're running an online store.
Okay. Yeah, I can see where this is going.
By analyzing your server logs, you could pinpoint those products that are just flying off the virtual shelves, the ones getting the most views.
Ah, so you can see what's really popular.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe you want to figure out where users are getting stuck in the checkout process.
Yeah, like those pesky abandoned carts.
Right? Or maybe you're dealing with some performance issues, the website's running slow.
Ugh, nothing worse than a slow website.
You can use those logs to pinpoint those bottlenecks that are slowing things down.
So instead of just guessing, you can make data-driven decisions to actually improve the website.
Exactly. And it's not just for e-commerce. Imagine you're working in cybersecurity.
Oh yeah, I bet log files are crucial in that field.
Absolutely. By parsing those security logs, you can start to identify suspicious activity, maybe track down the source of an attack.
So it's like having a digital detective on the case.
Exactly. And you can even build those automated systems, to proactively defend against those threats before they even happen.
So it's not just about reacting after the fact. You can get ahead of the game.
Right. And the cool thing is, it's not just about reacting to problems. You can analyze historical data to identify patterns, trends.
Oh, so you can spot those potential issues before they even become problems.
Precisely. It's like having a sneak peek into the future of your systems.
I'm starting to feel like awk is giving us superpowers.
Well, it definitely gives you the power to understand and optimize your systems in a whole new way. And the best part is, this isn't limited to just technical fields,
Wait, are you telling me I can use this in my everyday life?
Absolutely. Think about all the data you encounter every single day. Your browsing history, your social media feeds, even your email inbox.
Oh, wow, you're right. It's data overload everywhere we look.
And it's all just waiting to be parsed and analyzed.
I never thought I'd be so excited about log files, but seeing how awk can bring order to the chaos is pretty amazing.
And remember, we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore with awk and all those data wrangling techniques out there.
It's like we've opened this door to a whole new world. So for our listeners who are just starting out, what's the best way to dive in and learn awk?
The best way to learn, just start doing it. Grab a simple log file, experiment with those basic commands. There are tons of resources online, tutorials, documentation, you name it.
And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Oh, absolutely. The awk community is incredibly welcoming and helpful. Everyone's learning and growing together.
All right, so to our listeners, go forth and tame those wild data beasts. Who knew log files could be so empowering?
Happy hunting.